Welcome to One Book, One Coffee, where we delve into the world of transformative ideas and timeless wisdom. Today, we're exploring Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, a book that transcends mere pages and ink to offer you a roadmap to success and fulfillment. By choosing to spend your time here with us, diving into this classic, you're setting yourself apart. In an age where scrolling and binge-watching reign supreme, your choice to invest in your growth is truly remarkable. Think and Grow Rich is not just a book, it's a movement that has empowered millions of people globally. It's extraordinary because it distills the principles of success into actionable insights, revealing the secrets of wealth and achievement. Among its champions, you'll find the likes of Warren Buffett, who praised its clear and practical approach. Written during the Great Depression, Napoleon Hill was driven by a deep curiosity about what makes certain people successful while others are not. He interviewed over 500 of the most affluent individuals to uncover these secrets, including Thomas Edison and Henry Ford. Hill himself faced numerous struggles, from financial hardships to personal disappointments, which fueled his relentless pursuit of understanding success. Now, a quick note before we dive in. This is a detailed chapter-by-chapter walkthrough, so it's going to be a longer session. Take your time with it. There's no rush. If you need to step away, save this video to your watch later or forward the link to yourself on WhatsApp so you can pick up right where you left off. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's walk through this book together, chapter by chapter, idea by idea. Let's begin. Welcome back to One Book, One Coffee, where we dive deep into the timeless wisdom that can transform your life. I'm settling in with my morning brew, and I hope you've got yours ready too, because we're about to explore one of the most profound concepts Napoleon Hill ever shared with the world: the sheer, undeniable power of thought. Now, let me ask you something that might sound simple at first, but I want you to really think about this. When was the last time you truly considered the weight of your thoughts? Not just the fleeting ones that drift through your mind like clouds on a summer day, but the deep, persistent thoughts that occupy your mental real estate day after day. Hill discovered something remarkable during his 25 years of research studying the most successful people of his era, and it's this: every single achievement, every fortune built, every dream realized, began as nothing more than a thought in someone's mind. Think about this for a moment. The Wright brothers didn't just stumble upon the ability to fly. They thought about it, obsessed over it, and held that thought so firmly in their minds that it eventually materialized as the first successful airplane. Henry Ford didn't accidentally create the assembly line that revolutionized manufacturing. It started as a persistent thought, a vision of efficiency and accessibility that he refused to let go of, even when experts told him it was impossible. Hill tells us that thoughts are things, and this isn't some mystical mumbo-jumbo. This is practical, observable reality. Every man-made object around you right now, from the device you're listening to this on to the chair you're sitting in, existed first as a thought in someone's mind. But here's where it gets fascinating, and this is something Hill witnessed again and again in his interviews with titans of industry. Successful people don't just think about success casually. They think about it with burning intensity, with unwavering focus, with what Hill calls definiteness of purpose. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. Edwin Barnes had a burning desire to become a business associate of Thomas Edison. Now, Barnes didn't have money, connections, or even a formal education. What he had was a thought so powerful, so consuming, that it literally shaped his destiny. He traveled to Edison's laboratory in New Jersey and announced that he wanted to work with Edison, not for him, but with him as a partner. Most people would have laughed him out of the building, but Edison saw something in Barnes' determination, something in the intensity of his thought, and gave him a chance. Barnes started at the bottom, sweeping floors and doing menial tasks, but here's the crucial part. He never let go of his original thought. He held onto that vision of partnership with the same intensity as a drowning man holds onto a life preserver. Years later, when Edison invented the dictating machine, Barnes was the one who recognized its potential and became Edison's partner in marketing it. His thought had literally become his reality. Now you might be thinking, that's a nice story from 100 years ago, but what does this mean for me today? Well, consider this. We live in an age where thoughts can travel faster and reach further than ever before. Social media influencers build million-dollar businesses from thoughts they share online. Entrepreneurs create apps that solve problems they first identified in their minds. Even something as simple as a tweet, which is essentially a thought shared publicly, can launch careers, start movements, or change lives. But here's what Hill understood that many people miss. Not all thoughts are created equal. Random, scattered thinking produces random, scattered results. It's the focused, emotionalized thoughts, the ones backed by burning desire and unwavering faith, that have the power to transform circumstances. Hill observed that successful people had developed what he called mental discipline. They could direct their thoughts like a laser beam, concentrating all their mental energy on their definite chief aim. Think about the most successful people in today's world. Elon Musk didn't casually wonder about electric cars or space travel. These thoughts consumed him, drove him, and ultimately manifested as Tesla and SpaceX. Oprah Winfrey held thoughts of connection and empowerment so powerfully that they shaped not just her career, but an entire media empire that continues to influence millions. The beautiful truth that Hill discovered is that your thoughts are completely within your control. You might not be able to control your circumstances, your background, or what happens to you, but you have absolute sovereignty over your thoughts. And since thoughts are the seeds of all achievement, this means you have the power to plant whatever future you desire. As we wrap up this exploration of thought's incredible power, I want you to consider this. What thoughts are you allowing to dominate your mental landscape? Are they thoughts of possibility, of growth, of definite purpose? Or are they thoughts of limitation, doubt, and scattered desires? Because here's what Hill learned from studying the greatest minds of his generation, and what remains just as true today. The thoughts you think most often will eventually become your reality. So grab that coffee, settle in, and let's continue this journey together. Because understanding the power of thought is just the beginning of what Hill has to teach us about thinking and growing rich. Picture this. You're sitting across from me with your favorite cup of coffee, and I'm about to share something that could completely transform how you think about success. We're diving into Napoleon Hill's groundbreaking chapter on desire, and trust me, this isn't just some feel-good philosophy. This is the real deal, the foundation upon which every great achievement in human history has been built. Now, think about this for a moment. What separates the person who dreams of starting their own business from the entrepreneur who actually builds a million-dollar company? What distinguishes someone who wishes they could lose weight from the person who transforms their body and health? Hill discovered that the answer isn't talent, luck, or even circumstances. It's something much more fundamental and powerful: burning desire. But here's where it gets interesting. Hill isn't talking about the casual, wouldn't it be nice, kind of wanting. He's describing something far more intense, something he calls a white-hot desire that consumes your thoughts and drives your actions. Think of it like the difference between a flickering candle and a roaring bonfire. Both produce light, but only one has the power to transform everything around it. Hill shares the fascinating story of Edwin Barnes, a man who literally jumped off a freight train in West Orange, New Jersey, with nothing but the burning desire to become Thomas Edison's business partner. Now, imagine walking into Edison's office looking like a tramp, with no money, no connections, no impressive resume, and announcing that you want to be partners with one of the most famous inventors in the world. Most people would have laughed Barnes right out of the building. But Edison saw something different in his eyes, something that couldn't be faked or manufactured: genuine, burning desire. Barnes didn't become Edison's partner overnight. Instead, he started as a clerk, working for a modest salary, but here's the crucial part. He never lost sight of his definite purpose. While others saw him as just another employee, Barnes saw himself as Edison's future partner. That desire shaped every decision he made, every relationship he built, every skill he developed. And eventually, when the opportunity came to distribute Edison's dictating machine, Barnes was ready. His burning desire had prepared him for his moment, and he seized it, ultimately making his fortune and achieving his goal. What's remarkable about this story is how relevant it feels today. Think about any modern success story, whether it's someone building a tech startup from their garage, creating a viral social media presence, or transforming their health after years of struggle. Behind every breakthrough, you'll find that same white-hot desire that Hill describes. It's what kept Steve Jobs pushing forward after being fired from Apple. It's what drives athletes to train when no one is watching. It's what transforms ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. But here's what Hill understood that many miss. Desire alone isn't enough. It must be definite, specific, and backed by a burning intensity that refuses to accept defeat. Vague wishes like, "I want to be rich" or "I want to be successful" lack the precision needed to activate what Hill calls the sixth sense. Instead, you need to know exactly what you want, how much you want when you want it, and most importantly, what you're willing to give in return. Consider how this applies to our modern world. In an age of infinite distractions, where social media constantly bombards us with other people's highlight reels, maintaining that burning desire becomes both more challenging and more essential than ever. How many people start the year with ambitious goals only to abandon them by February? The difference isn't in their initial enthusiasm, but in the depth and definiteness of their desire. Hill emphasizes that true desire has a peculiar quality. It demands action. It's not passive longing, but an active force that compels you to move, to learn, to grow, to persist when others quit. When Barnes worked as Edison's clerk, his desire didn't let him settle into complacency. It kept him alert, watching for opportunities, building relationships, developing skills that would serve his ultimate purpose. Think about the most successful people you know personally. I'll bet they share this common trait. They know exactly what they want, and they want it with an intensity that's almost palpable. They don't just hope things will work out. They're driven by an inner fire that makes success not just possible but inevitable. As we continue exploring Hill's timeless principles, remember that desire is where everything begins. It's the spark that ignites the engine of achievement, the foundation upon which all other success principles are built. Without it, knowledge is powerless, opportunity is meaningless, and potential remains forever unrealized. But with burning desire as your starting point, you possess the most fundamental ingredient for transforming any dream into reality. Welcome back to our cozy corner where we dive deep into Napoleon Hill's timeless wisdom. Pour yourself that fresh cup of coffee, settle in, and let's explore one of the most powerful forces Hill discovered in his decades of studying successful people: the incredible power of faith and belief. Now, when Hill talks about faith, he's not necessarily talking about religious faith, though that can certainly be part of it. He's talking about something much more fundamental, something that every single successful person he studied possessed in abundance. Think about this for a moment. What separates the person who builds a multi-million-dollar business from the person who gives up after the first rejection? What distinguishes the inventor who persists through hundreds of failed experiments from the one who throws in the towel after the first few attempts? Hill discovered its faith, a deep, unshakable belief in the inevitable achievement of their desires. Hill describes faith as a state of mind that can be developed through the repetition of instructions to the subconscious mind. Imagine your subconscious as a fertile garden. Every thought you plant there, especially the ones repeated with emotion and conviction, will eventually grow into reality. But here's the fascinating part. Your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between thoughts that are true and thoughts that are false. It simply accepts whatever you feed it consistently and acts upon those instructions. Let me share one of Hill's most compelling examples. He tells the story of a man who was considered dumb by his teachers and family. This young man had such severe learning difficulties that everyone around him believed he would never amount to anything. but his mother had unshakable faith in him. She constantly told him he was brilliant, that he had a special gift, that he would accomplish great things. She repeated these affirmations so consistently and with such conviction that the boy began to believe them himself. That boy was Thomas Edison, who went on to become one of history's greatest inventors, holding over 1,000 patents. Now think about this. What if Edison's mother had simply accepted what the teachers said? What if she had allowed negative programming to take root in his young mind? The world might never have known electric light, recorded sound, or countless other innovations that transformed human civilization. This is the power of faith in action, and it demonstrates something crucial. Faith is not passive hoping, it's active believing backed by persistent action. Hill introduces us to what he calls the faith formula, and it's beautifully simple yet profoundly powerful. First, you must know exactly what you want and have a burning desire to possess it. Vague wishes won't cut it. Second, you must believe you can have it, and this belief must be so strong that you can see yourself already in possession of your goal. Third, you must be willing to give something of value in return for what you want. Nothing worthwhile comes without a price, and faith includes the willingness to pay that price. Here's where visualization becomes absolutely critical. Hill discovered that successful people don't just think about their goals, they see them, feel them, experience them in vivid detail in their minds. They create what we might call today a mental movie of their success, and they play this movie over and over until it becomes more real to them than their current circumstances. Consider the story Hill shares about a young man who wanted to work with Thomas Edison. This wasn't just a casual wish, it was a burning obsession. The young man visualized himself working alongside Edison so vividly that he could see the laboratory, smell the chemicals, hear the sounds of invention. He held this vision with such faith that when he finally got the opportunity to meet Edison, his certainty and conviction were so compelling that Edison hired him on the spot. That young man became one of Edison's most valued associates. But here's what makes faith truly powerful in our modern world. It's not about blind optimism or ignoring reality. True faith is built on preparation meeting opportunity. When you have faith in your ability to achieve something, you naturally begin to notice opportunities that align with your goals. You start developing skills, building relationships, and taking actions that move you toward your vision. Faith becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because it changes how you show up in the world. Think about today's most successful entrepreneurs. Whether it's someone building a tech startup or creating a social media empire, they all share this quality of unwavering faith in their vision, even when others can't see it. They believe so strongly in what they're creating that they're willing to invest years of their lives, often facing ridicule and skepticism, because their faith in the outcome is absolute. As we close this exploration of faith and visualization, remember that Hill isn't asking you to believe in magic. He's revealing a fundamental truth about human psychology. We move toward whatever we focus on with emotion and conviction. Your faith becomes your reality because it directs your actions, shapes your decisions, and attracts the people and opportunities that align with your beliefs. So as you sip the last of your coffee today, ask yourself, what are you programming into your subconscious mind? What reality are you creating through your daily thoughts and beliefs? Because tomorrow, we'll discover how this foundation of faith connects to the next crucial principle in Hill's success formula. Picture this. You're sitting in your favorite coffee shop, and someone asks you how you program your mind for success. Sounds a bit science fiction, doesn't it? But here's the fascinating thing that Napoleon Hill discovered decades before neuroscience proved him right. We're constantly programming our minds whether we realize it or not. The question isn't whether we're doing it, but whether we're doing it intentionally. Hill called this process autosuggestion, and it's essentially the bridge between your conscious desires and your subconscious mind. Think of it as the translator that takes your goals and dreams and converts them into a language your subconscious can understand and act upon. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge what you feed it. It simply accepts whatever thoughts you repeatedly present to it as truth and starts working to make those thoughts reality. Imagine your subconscious mind as the most loyal employee you've ever had. It never sleeps, never takes a vacation, and never questions your instructions. But here's the catch, it's also completely literal. If you keep telling yourself, "I'll never be successful," or "I'm not good with money," your subconscious mind says, "Got it, boss," and starts organizing your life to match those instructions. It's like having a superpowered assistant who takes everything you say absolutely seriously. Hill understood that most people accidentally program themselves for mediocrity through negative self-talk and doubt. They're essentially giving their subconscious mind a blueprint for failure without even realizing it. But what if you could flip that script? What if you could deliberately plant thoughts of success, abundance, and achievement so deeply in your subconscious that it had no choice but to guide you toward those outcomes? This is where the magic of autosuggestion comes in. It's not just positive thinking, though that's part of it. It's a systematic approach to reprogramming your mental operating system. Think about how athletes visualize their performance before a big game, or how actors rehearse their lines until they become second nature. They're using autosuggestion to prepare their minds for success. Here's a powerful example Hill shares. Imagine you want to earn a specific amount of money. Instead of just wishing for it, you write down the exact amount, the date by which you want to achieve it, and what you plan to give in return for that money. Then you read this statement aloud twice daily, once when you wake up and once before bed, while visualizing yourself already in possession of that money. You see yourself living the life that money would provide, feeling the emotions of having achieved that goal. Now you might be thinking, this sounds too simple to work. But consider this. Every major achievement in human history started as a thought in someone's mind. The smartphone you're probably carrying right now was once just an idea that someone kept thinking about, refining, and believing in until it became reality. Steve Jobs didn't just stumble upon the iPhone. He obsessed over the vision of putting powerful technology in everyone's pocket. The key to effective autosuggestion lies in emotion and repetition. Your subconscious mind pays special attention to thoughts that are charged with strong feelings. When you combine desire, belief, and repetition, you create what Hill calls a burning obsession, a mental state so powerful that your subconscious mind mobilizes all its resources to help you achieve your goal. Think about the last time you really wanted something, maybe a new job, a relationship, or a personal achievement. Chances are, you found yourself naturally thinking about it constantly, imagining what it would be like to have it, and unconsciously taking actions that moved you closer to that goal. That's autosuggestion at work, even if you didn't call it that. But here's what separates successful people from everyone else. They don't leave this process to chance. They deliberately choose what to focus on and systematically feed their minds with thoughts that align with their goals. They understand that their thoughts are not just random mental chatter, they're the seeds of their future reality. In our modern world, this principle is more relevant than ever. We're bombarded with negative messages from news, social media, and even well-meaning friends and family who tell us what's not possible. Autosuggestion becomes our defense against this mental pollution and our tool for staying focused on what we want to create rather than what we want to avoid. As we move forward in our exploration of Hill's timeless principles, remember this. Your mind is listening to every word you say to yourself. Make sure you're giving it instructions that serve your highest aspirations, because whether you realize it or not, it's working around the clock to turn your dominant thoughts into your lived experience. Picture this. You're sitting across from someone who claims to know everything about everything. They can quote Shakespeare, discuss quantum physics, and debate ancient philosophy. Impressive, right? But here's the kicker. When you ask them to solve a real problem, to actually create value in the world, they're completely lost. Now contrast that with the master craftsman who knows everything there is to know about their specific trade, or the entrepreneur who understands their market inside and out. Who do you think creates more wealth? This brings us to one of Napoleon Hill's most practical and immediately applicable principles: the absolute power of specialized knowledge. And I want you to lean in here, because this chapter might just revolutionize how you think about learning and expertise in our modern world. Hill makes a distinction that most people completely miss. He separates what he calls general knowledge from specialized knowledge, and here's where it gets fascinating. General knowledge, no matter how vast, is practically useless when it comes to accumulating wealth. It's like having a library card but never actually reading the books that matter for your goals. Specialized knowledge, on the other hand, is like having a master key that opens specific doors to opportunity and riches. Think about this for a moment. In our age of Google and artificial intelligence, general knowledge has become almost worthless. Anyone can look up facts, dates, and general information within seconds. But specialized knowledge, that's where the real value lies. That's what companies pay premium prices for. That's what creates millionaires and billionaires. Hill tells the story of a man who seemed ordinary by every measure. He wasn't particularly brilliant, didn't have an exceptional education, and certainly wasn't born into wealth. But this man possessed specialized knowledge about one specific thing. He understood the patent business better than almost anyone alive. This specialized knowledge became his fortune-making machine. He didn't need to know everything about everything. He just needed to know more than anyone else about one particular area that had enormous value in the marketplace. Now, here's where this gets really interesting for us today. We're living in what economists call the knowledge economy, where information and expertise are the new currency. But here's the paradox. While information has become more accessible than ever, truly specialized knowledge has become more valuable than ever. Why? Because specialization allows you to go deep while others stay shallow. Consider the difference between a general practitioner doctor and a neurosurgeon. Both are intelligent, both went to medical school, but the neurosurgeon's specialized knowledge commands dramatically higher compensation. Or think about the difference between someone who knows about computers versus a cybersecurity expert who understands the intricate details of protecting financial networks. The specialist doesn't just earn more, they often earn exponentially more. Hill emphasizes something crucial here that most people overlook. Specialized knowledge must be practical and organized. It's not enough to just accumulate information in your chosen field. You need to organize that knowledge in a way that creates value for others. This is where many intelligent people fail. They become walking encyclopedias of their field, but never learn how to transform that knowledge into wealth. Let me paint you a picture of how this works in practice. Imagine two people studying digital marketing. One person learns a little bit about everything: social media, email marketing, content creation, analytics, paid advertising. They become a generalist. The second person decides to become the absolute best at one specific aspect, let's say conversion optimization for e-commerce websites. They study every case study, learn every technique, understand every psychological principle that drives people to buy online. Who do you think commands higher fees? Who gets called when a company needs to dramatically increase their online sales? The specialist, every single time. Because when businesses have a specific problem, they don't want someone who knows a little about everything. They want the person who knows everything about their particular challenge. But here's Hill's most profound insight about specialized knowledge. You don't have to personally possess all the knowledge you need. You can organize the specialized knowledge of others. This is how many of the wealthiest people in history operated. Henry Ford famously said he didn't need to know everything. He just needed to know how to surround himself with people who possessed the specialized knowledge he required. This principle is more relevant today than ever. In our hyperconnected world, your ability to identify, access, and organize specialized knowledge from multiple sources can become your greatest asset. Think about successful entrepreneurs today. They rarely know how to code, design, manufacture, and market all by themselves. Instead, They become masters at organizing the specialized knowledge of others toward a common goal. As we transition deeper into Hill's teachings, remember this. In a world where everyone has access to general information, your specialized knowledge becomes your competitive moat. It's not just what you know, it's how deeply you know it and how effectively you can apply it to create value for others. Picture this. You're sitting in your favorite coffee shop, watching the steam rise from your cup, when suddenly an idea hits you. Not just any idea, but one of those lightning bolt moments that makes you grab a napkin and start scribbling furiously. That, my friend, is your imagination at work, and according to Napoleon Hill, it's quite literally the most powerful tool you possess for creating wealth and success. Hill calls imagination the workshop of the mind, and once you understand what he means by this, you'll never look at daydreaming the same way again. See, most of us think imagination is just for kids playing pretend or artists creating their next masterpiece. But Hill discovered something remarkable through his decades of studying successful people. Every fortune, every breakthrough, every empire began as nothing more than a thought in someone's imagination. Think about this for a moment. The device you're probably listening to this on right now, whether it's your phone, tablet, or computer, was once just an imaginary concept floating around in someone's mind. Steve Jobs didn't stumble upon the iPhone lying on the ground somewhere. He imagined it first. He saw it in his mind's eye before it ever existed in reality. That's the power Hill is talking about. Now, Hill breaks imagination down into two distinct types, and understanding this distinction is crucial. First, there's what he calls synthetic imagination. This is your mind's ability to take existing ideas, concepts, or plans and rearrange them into new combinations. It's like being a master chef who takes familiar ingredients and creates an entirely new dish. Most of our day-to-day problem-solving uses synthetic imagination. When you figure out a more efficient route to work or find a creative solution to a workplace challenge, you're using synthetic imagination. But then there's the really exciting stuff, creative imagination. This is where Hill gets almost mystical, and honestly, it's where the magic happens. Creative imagination taps into what he calls infinite intelligence, that vast reservoir of knowledge and ideas that exists beyond our conscious minds. This is where truly original ideas come from, where breakthrough innovations are born, where the impossible becomes possible. Consider the story of Marconi, the inventor of wireless telegraphy. When he announced his intention to send messages through the air without wires, his friends literally had him examined for mental illness. They thought he'd lost his mind. But Marconi's creative imagination had tapped into something real, something that would eventually revolutionize global communication. His friends saw empty air. He saw invisible highways of possibility. Here's what's fascinating about creative imagination. It often works best when we're not trying so hard. You know those moments when you're in the shower or taking a walk, and suddenly the solution to a problem you've been wrestling with just pops into your head. That's creative imagination at work. It's why so many entrepreneurs and inventors keep notebooks by their beds, because breakthrough ideas often come in those quiet, relaxed moments when the conscious mind steps aside. But here's the key insight Hill shares. Imagination without action is just wishful thinking. He's very clear about this. You can have the most brilliant, imaginative ideas in the world, but if you don't combine them with organized planning and persistent action, they remain nothing more than pleasant fantasies. The workshop of the mind must produce actual blueprints, not just pretty pictures. Let me share a modern example that perfectly illustrates Hill's principles. Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, was getting dressed for a party when she cut the feet off her pantyhose to create a smoother silhouette under white pants. That moment of creative imagination, born from a practical problem, eventually turned into a billion-dollar empire. But notice what happened next. She didn't just think, "What a great idea," and move on. She researched the hosiery industry, developed prototypes, pitched to manufacturers, and persisted through countless rejections. Her imagination provided the spark, but organized action built the fire. Now, think about your own life for a moment. What ideas have been floating around in your imagination that you've dismissed as unrealistic or impossible? Hill would argue that those impossible ideas might actually be your creative imagination trying to show you your path to success. The question isn't whether your ideas are realistic by today's standards. The question is whether you're willing to develop them through organized planning and persistent effort. Hill also emphasizes that imagination grows stronger with use, like a muscle that develops through exercise. The more you consciously engage your imagination, the more powerful it becomes. This is why he recommends spending time each day in quiet contemplation, allowing your mind to explore possibilities without the constraints of immediate practicality. As we prepare to dive deeper into Hill's methodology for transforming imaginative ideas into concrete plans, remember this: every great fortune started as an idea in someone's imagination. The only difference between dreamers and achievers is what they do with those ideas once they have them. Your imagination isn't just a source of entertainment. It's your personal workshop for building the life you truly want. Picture this. You're sitting in your favorite coffee shop, that perfect blend of caffeine and ambition coursing through your veins, when someone asks you the million-dollar question, literally. How do you turn a burning desire into cold, hard cash? Well, my friend, Napoleon Hill discovered that desire alone is like having a sports car without a roadmap. It might look impressive, but it won't get you where you want to go. That's where organized planning comes in, the bridge between dreaming and achieving. Hill learned something fascinating from studying over 500 of the wealthiest people of his time. Every single one of them had mastered what he called the crystallization of desire into action. Think about that phrase for a moment. Crystallization. It's not just change. It's transformation into something solid, structured, and valuable. Just like how carbon becomes a diamond under the right conditions and pressure, your desires can become reality through organized planning. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Hill discovered that most people fail not because they lack desire or even ability, but because they approach their goals like they're throwing darts in the dark. They have this vague notion of what they want, maybe more money, a better job, or financial freedom. But when you ask them for their specific plan, they look at you like you just asked them to solve quantum physics. Sound familiar? Let me share one of Hill's most compelling examples. He tells the story of a young man who wanted to work for Thomas Edison. This wasn't just wishful thinking. This was organized planning in action. The young man didn't simply send a resume and hope for the best. Instead, he created a detailed plan that included studying Edison's work, understanding his company's needs, and positioning himself as the solution to a specific problem. He even took a job at a lower position just to get his foot in the door. The result? He eventually became one of Edison's most trusted associates and accumulated substantial wealth in the process. But here's what makes this story so powerful for us today. Think about the entrepreneurs and innovators of our time, the people building the next Amazon, the next Tesla, the next breakthrough app. They all follow this same principle of organized planning. They don't just have a great idea. They have a systematic approach to making that idea reality. They know exactly who their customers are, how they'll reach them, what resources they need, and what steps they'll take in what order. Hill identified something crucial that separates successful planners from everyone else. They understand that planning is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. Your first plan will probably fail, and that's perfectly fine. In fact, Hill observed that temporary defeat often contains the seeds of equivalent benefit, but only if you're organized enough to extract the lessons and adjust your approach. It's like being a scientist in the laboratory of your own life, constantly experimenting, measuring results, and refining your formula for success. Consider how this applies to something as modern as building a personal brand on social media. The people who succeed don't just post randomly and hope something goes viral. They have organized plans that include content calendars, engagement strategies, partnership opportunities, and clear metrics for success. They treat their Instagram or LinkedIn profile like a business because they understand that organized planning applies whether you're building a railroad empire in 1920 or a digital empire in 2024. He'll also emphasize something that might surprise you: the importance of surrounding yourself with what he called a mastermind group. This isn't just networking, it's organized planning applied to relationships. Successful people deliberately cultivate connections with others whose knowledge, skills, and resources complement their own. They understand that no one achieves great success entirely alone, and they plan their relationships as carefully as they plan their business strategies. Now think about this. How different would your life be if you approached your biggest goals with the same level of organization that you bring to planning a vacation? You research destinations, compare prices, book accommodations, create itineraries, and pack systematically. Yet when it comes to our most important dreams, we often wing it and hope for the best. The beauty of organized planning is that it transforms overwhelming goals into manageable steps. It's the difference between staring at a mountain and feeling intimidated versus having a detailed trail map that shows you exactly where to place each step. Your desire provides the energy, but organized planning provides the direction and the method. As we move forward in our exploration of Hill's timeless principles, remember that every great achievement in history started with someone who refused to let their dreams remain mere wishes. They crystallized their desires into concrete plans, and then they worked those plans with unwavering persistence. Your dreams are waiting for the same treatment. Picture this. You're sitting at your favorite coffee shop, watching people walk by, and you notice something fascinating. Some folks stride with purpose, making quick turns, checking their phones briefly, then moving forward with clear intent. Others meander, stop frequently, check their phones obsessively, seem to wrestle with every small choice. Napoleon Hill would tell you that you're witnessing the fundamental difference between those who achieve wealth and success and those who don't. It all comes down to one crucial ability that separates the prosperous from the struggling: the power of decision. Now here's something that might surprise you about successful people. Hill spent years studying the wealthy elite of his time, from Andrew Carnegie to Henry Ford, and discovered something remarkable. These titans of industry didn't necessarily have superior intelligence, better connections, or even more money to start with. What they possessed was something far more valuable and entirely within anyone's reach. They could make decisions quickly and change them slowly. Think about that for a moment. While others were paralyzed by analysis, these leaders were already 3 steps ahead, having made their choice and begun taking action. Hill tells us that procrastination is nothing more than the opposite of decision, and it's perhaps the most common cause of failure. But here's where it gets interesting. Procrastination isn't just about putting off tasks until tomorrow. It's about the inability to reach definite decisions when decisions need to be made. Consider how this plays out in our modern world. How many brilliant ideas have died in endless planning meetings? How many potential entrepreneurs are still researching the perfect business plan, while others with good enough plans are already building their empires? The author shares a powerful insight about how successful people approach decision-making that completely changed how I think about choices. They gather the facts they need, consult with trusted advisors if necessary, but then they decide quickly and definitively. Once that decision is made, they're slow to change it unless new evidence clearly demands a shift. Compare this to unsuccessful people who either can't make decisions at all, or who change their minds with every new piece of information or opinion they encounter. Here's a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. Hill recounts how Henry Ford made the decision to produce his famous V8 engine. His engineers told him it was impossible to cast an 8-cylinder engine block in one piece. Ford's response wasn't to form a committee or conduct a 6-month feasibility study. He simply said, "Produce it anyway." When the engineers continued to protest that it couldn't be done, Ford replied, Go ahead and stay on the job until you succeed, no matter how much time is required. They worked for an entire year and finally succeeded. Ford's decisive command created what his engineer's hesitation never could have achieved. Now, think about this in terms of your own life. How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers while you were still deciding whether to pursue them? How many times have you watched someone else succeed with an idea you had been considering for months or years? The difference wasn't that they were smarter or more talented. The difference was that they decided and acted while you were still weighing options. Hill emphasizes that people who fail to accumulate money often lack the habit of reaching decisions promptly. They're easily influenced by the opinions of others, constantly seeking more advice, more research, more validation. But here's the paradox. The very act of seeking too many opinions often leads to confusion and inaction, because everyone has a different perspective based on their own experiences and limitations. The wealthy individuals Hill studied had learned to trust their own judgment after gathering sufficient information. They understood that waiting for perfect information is a luxury that successful people can't afford. In our digital age, this lesson is more relevant than ever. We have access to unlimited information, unlimited opinions, unlimited research possibilities. But information without decision leads to paralysis, not progress. There's something almost magical about the moment you make a firm decision. Hill describes how the universe seems to conspire to help you achieve what you've definitively decided to pursue. Resources appear, opportunities open up, people enter your life who can help. But none of this happens while you're still in the deciding phase. It only activates once you've crossed that line from contemplation to commitment. As we move forward in our exploration of Hill's timeless wisdom, remember that every chapter builds upon this foundation of decisive action. Your ability to think and grow rich isn't just about having the right thoughts or the right knowledge. It's about transforming those thoughts into decisions, and those decisions into immediate, persistent action. Because in the end, the world belongs to those who decide quickly and act decisively, not to those who know the most or plan the longest. Picture this. You're sitting in your favorite coffee shop, the aroma of freshly ground beans filling the air, and across from you sits someone who's about to share one of the most transformative secrets of human achievement. That's exactly what Napoleon Hill does when he talks about persistence, and trust me, this isn't just another motivational pep talk. This is the real deal, the kind of wisdom that separates dreamers from achievers. Hill opens this chapter with a truth that might sting a little. Most people are excellent starters but terrible finishers. Now, think about this for a moment. How many projects have you started with burning enthusiasm, only to abandon them when the initial excitement wore off? How many dreams have you shelved the moment you encountered your first real obstacle? If you're nodding along, you're in good company because Hill discovered this pattern in nearly everyone he studied, except for one crucial group, the truly successful. Here's where it gets fascinating. Hill tells us that persistence is the direct result of habit, and habit is what transforms ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. But he's not talking about the kind of surface-level persistence we often hear about. This isn't about gritting your teeth and pushing through pain for the sake of it. This is something much more sophisticated and, frankly, much more powerful. Think of persistence like a muscle that grows stronger with use, but here's the twist. It's a muscle that feeds on purpose. Hill discovered that people who develop unshakable persistence share one common trait. They have a burning desire so intense that failure simply isn't an option their mind will accept. It's like having an internal compass that always points toward your goal, no matter how many storms you encounter. Let me share one of Hill's most compelling examples. He studied a man who was determined to become a successful inventor. This wasn't someone with natural genius or unlimited resources. In fact, he faced rejection after rejection, failure after failure. But here's what made him different. Every setback became fuel for his next attempt. When people told him his ideas were worthless, he used their criticism to refine his approach. When investors turned him away, he found new ways to fund his experiments. What looked like stubbornness to others was actually a sophisticated form of persistence that Hill called intelligent persistence. Now you might be wondering, what makes persistence intelligent rather than just plain stubborn? Hill breaks this down beautifully. Intelligent persistence means you adapt your methods while never abandoning your goal. It's like being a river that always finds its way to the ocean, sometimes flowing around rocks, sometimes carving through them, but never stopping its journey toward its destination. Here's something that will probably surprise you. Hill discovered that most people quit just 3 feet from gold. He literally uses this metaphor, drawn from the California gold rush, where countless miners abandoned their claims just before striking it rich. The next person who took over their claim would often find gold within days or weeks. This pattern shows up everywhere in modern life. Think about entrepreneurs who give up on their business just before it would have turned profitable, or students who drop out of programs just before landing their dream job. But Hill doesn't leave us hanging with just stories and metaphors. He provides a practical blueprint for developing persistence. First, he emphasizes the power of definite purpose. You can't persist toward a vague goal any more than you can navigate to somewhere nice. Your destination must be crystal clear and emotionally compelling. Second, he talks about the importance of surrounding yourself with what he calls a mastermind group, people who believe in your vision and will support you through the inevitable rough patches. Here's where Hill's insights become almost prophetic when you consider today's world. He understood that persistence isn't just about individual willpower. It's about creating systems and environments that make persistence easier. In our modern context, this might mean using apps to track your progress, joining online communities of like-minded people, or setting up automatic systems that keep you moving toward your goals even when motivation wanes. Hill also reveals something crucial about the relationship between persistence and faith. He discovered that as people develop persistence, they simultaneously develop an unshakable faith in their ability to achieve their goals. It's not the other way around. You don't need faith first. You develop faith through the act of persisting. Every small victory, every obstacle overcome, every day you choose to continue despite difficulties, adds another layer to your foundation of faith. As we wrap up this exploration of persistence, remember this. Hill isn't asking you to become a different person overnight. He's showing you how to become the person you already are at your core, but with one crucial addition: the ability to sustain effort until your dreams become reality. The question isn't whether you have the capacity for persistence. The question is whether you'll choose to develop it. And that choice, my friend, might just be the difference between living with regret and living with fulfillment. Picture this. You're sitting in your favorite coffee shop, watching a group of entrepreneurs huddled around a corner table, their laptops open, ideas flowing faster than the barista can pull espresso shots. There's an electric energy in the air, and you can almost see the sparks of innovation jumping between them. What you're witnessing, my friend, is one of the most powerful forces Napoleon Hill ever discovered, the mastermind principle. Now, here's where Hill gets really fascinating. He didn't just stumble upon this idea while sipping his morning coffee. No, this man spent 20 years studying the most successful people of his time, and what he found was absolutely mind-blowing. Every single one of them, from Andrew Carnegie to Henry Ford, had surrounded themselves with brilliant minds who could complement their own thinking. They had discovered what Hill called the driving force behind all great achievement. Think about this for a moment. When two minds come together and work in harmony toward a definite purpose, they create a third, invisible force. It's like when you're trying to move a heavy piece of furniture by yourself. You might struggle and strain, but the moment a friend joins you, suddenly that impossible task becomes effortless. But Hill discovered something even more remarkable. This isn't just about physical cooperation. It's about mental cooperation, creating something that transcends what either mind could achieve alone. Let me paint you a picture of how this works in practice. Hill tells us about Henry Ford, a man who never claimed to be the smartest person in the room, but who understood the mastermind principle better than almost anyone. Ford surrounded himself with experts in engineering, finance, marketing, and manufacturing. When critics called him ignorant for not knowing every detail of his business, Ford famously replied that he didn't need to carry such information in his head when he could press a button and summon any expert he needed within minutes. Brilliant, right? Now you might be thinking, that's all well and good for industrial titans, but what about me? Here's where it gets exciting for all of us living in the 21st century. The mastermind principle is more accessible today than it ever was in Hill's time. Think about the successful YouTubers, podcasters, and online entrepreneurs you admire. Almost every one of them talks about their team, their collaborators, their accountability partners. They're applying the mastermind principle, often without even realizing they're following a formula that Hill identified nearly a century ago. Consider how this plays out in our modern world. Look at the founders of Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Neither could have created that search engine empire alone. Their combined intellectual force, their ability to challenge each other's thinking, to build upon each other's ideas, that's the mastermind in action. Or think about the podcast, How I Built This, where Guy Raz interviews successful entrepreneurs. Listen carefully, and you'll hear story after story of people who succeeded not because they were lone wolves, but because they found the right combination of minds to work with. But here's what Hill understood that many people miss today. A true mastermind isn't just about networking or casual collaboration. It requires what he called harmony of purpose. You can't just throw smart people in a room and expect magic to happen. There has to be a definite, shared objective that everyone is genuinely committed to achieving. It's the difference between a group chat where people share random business ideas and a focused team that meets regularly with a clear mission. The beauty of the mastermind principle lies in its multiplying effect. When you're working alone, you're limited by your own knowledge, your own perspective, your own blind spots. But when you're part of a true mastermind group, you suddenly have access to the combined experience, knowledge, and intuition of every member. It's like upgrading from a single-core processor to a multi-core system. The increase in processing power is exponential, not just additive. Hill also discovered something profound about the psychological aspect of masterminds. When you're surrounded by ambitious, success-minded individuals, their enthusiasm becomes contagious. Their belief in achievement raises your own standards. Their diverse perspectives challenge your assumptions and push you to think bigger. It's like being in a room where everyone expects excellence. You naturally rise to meet that expectation. As we wrap up this exploration of the mastermind principle, remember that Hill wasn't just sharing theory here. He was revealing the secret operating system behind virtually every great achievement in human history. Whether it's the founding fathers collaborating on the Constitution, the Beatles creating revolutionary music together, or modern tech innovators building the platforms we use every day, the mastermind principle is always at work. The question isn't whether this principle works. The question is whether you'll have the wisdom to harness its power in your own journey toward success. Welcome back to another chapter of Think and Grow Rich, where we're diving deep into one of Napoleon Hill's most fascinating and often misunderstood concepts. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, because today we're exploring what Hill called the mystery of sex transmutation. And before you raise an eyebrow, this isn't what you might think it is. This is about something far more powerful, learning to channel your most potent creative energy into extraordinary achievement. Picture this. You know that feeling when you're completely energized, when every cell in your body seems to be buzzing with potential. That surge of vitality that makes you feel like you could conquer the world. Hill discovered something remarkable about this energy. It's the same force that drives both physical attraction and creative genius. The question isn't whether you have this energy, you absolutely do, but rather, how are you directing it? Hill spent decades studying the most successful people of his era, and he noticed something fascinating. The individuals who achieved the greatest heights of success had learned to redirect their sexual energy into their work, their creativity, their ambitions. Now, think about this for a moment. When was the last time you felt that electric surge of inspiration that made you want to create something amazing? That's the energy Hill is talking about, and it's incredibly powerful when properly channeled. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this concept. Hill studied the life of Napoleon Bonaparte, and he noticed something intriguing about the emperor's rise and fall. During Napoleon's most brilliant military campaigns, when he was reshaping the map of Europe, he was separated from Josephine, the woman he loved passionately. His letters to her during this time reveal a man burning with desire, but that same burning energy was being poured into his strategic genius. His greatest victories came when this powerful emotional and physical energy was being transmuted into military brilliance. But here's the fascinating part. Hill observed that Napoleon's decline began when he started indulging his appetites rather than channeling that energy into his ambitions. This isn't about suppression or denial, quite the opposite. It's about understanding that you have this incredible reservoir of creative energy, and you get to choose how to use it. Think of it like electricity flowing through your home. The same electrical current can power a light bulb, run your computer, or charge your phone. The energy itself is neutral. It's what you plug into that circuit that determines the outcome. Hill identified what he called the 10 stimuli that awaken creative genius, and sexual energy topped the list. But he wasn't advocating for a monastic lifestyle. Instead, he was revealing something profound about human nature. When we learn to harness and direct our most powerful drives, we become capable of extraordinary things. The key word here is transmutation, transformation from one form into another. Consider some of the greatest creative minds in history. Think about the intensity with which artists like Michelangelo approached their work, or the passionate dedication scientists like Marie Curie brought to their research. That level of consuming focus, that burning intensity, that's transmuted energy at work. These individuals learn to channel their deepest drives into their highest purposes. In our modern world, we're constantly bombarded with distractions that dissipate this energy. Social media, endless entertainment, instant gratification, all of these can scatter our focus and drain the very power that could fuel our greatest achievements. But here's the beautiful thing. Once you understand this principle, you can start making conscious choices about where your energy goes. Now, how does this apply to your life today? Start by becoming aware of your energy patterns. When do you feel most alive, most creative, most powerful? Instead of letting that energy dissipate through mindless scrolling or passive entertainment, what if you directed it toward your biggest goals? What if that surge of vitality became the fuel for writing your book, building your business, or mastering a new skill? Hill observed that the most successful people often had what he called highly sexed natures, meaning they possessed strong drives and intense emotions. But rather than being controlled by these forces, they learned to control and direct them. They became masters of their own energy, conducting it like a symphony toward their chosen objectives. The practical application is surprisingly simple. When you feel that surge of energy, that restless creativity, that burning desire to create or achieve something great, don't waste it. Channel it immediately into productive action. Write, create, plan, build, solve problems. Let that energy become the wind in the sails of your ambitions. This understanding transforms how you view your own drives and desires. They're not obstacles to overcome, they're fuel for the journey. The same energy that creates life can create a life worth living. As we move forward in our exploration of Hill's principles, remember this. You already possess the power you need to achieve extraordinary things. The question isn't whether you have enough energy. It's whether you're directing it toward your highest and best purposes. Picture yourself settling into your favorite chair with that perfect cup of coffee, because we're about to dive into one of the most fascinating chapters in Napoleon Hill's masterpiece. You know, After studying over 500 of the most successful people of his time, Hill discovered something remarkable about the subconscious mind that most people completely overlook. Think about this for a moment. What if I told you that your subconscious mind is working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, processing millions of pieces of information, and that you could actually direct this incredible power toward achieving your goals? Hill describes the subconscious mind as the connecting link between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence. Now, that might sound a bit mystical at first, but stay with me here. Imagine your subconscious as the most sophisticated computer ever created, one that never stops running, never takes a break, and is constantly searching for ways to solve the problems you feed it. The fascinating part is that this mental computer doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. It simply takes whatever you consistently think about and begins working to make it your reality. Here's where it gets really interesting. Hill explains that the subconscious mind responds only to thoughts that have been mixed with emotion. Think about the last time you were absolutely terrified about something. Remember how that fear seemed to consume your thoughts, how it felt so real that your body actually responded with physical symptoms. Your subconscious was working overtime, but unfortunately, it was working to manifest the very thing you feared most. Now imagine if you could harness that same emotional intensity, but direct it toward your desires instead of your fears. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. There was a young entrepreneur I knew who was struggling to build her online business. Every night before bed, she would visualize herself successfully launching her product, but her visualization was flat, emotionless, more like watching a boring movie than experiencing a thrilling adventure. Then she learned Hill's secret. She began to feel the excitement, the gratitude, the pure joy of seeing her first sale notification. She imagined the relief of paying off her student loans, the pride in her parents' eyes when she told them about her success. Within 6 months, her business had completely transformed, not because the market changed, but because her subconscious mind finally had clear, emotionally charged instructions to work with. The beautiful thing about the subconscious mind is that it's completely impartial. It doesn't care whether you're rich or poor, educated or not, young or old. It simply takes the dominant thoughts in your conscious mind and begins the process of transforming them into their physical equivalent. But here's the catch that most people miss. The subconscious mind is like a garden that will grow whatever seeds you plant. Plant thoughts of abundance, success, and possibility, and that's what will grow. Plant thoughts of limitation, fear, and scarcity, and unfortunately, that's what you'll harvest. Now think about this in our modern world. We're constantly bombarded with negative news, social media comparisons, and messages telling us what we can't achieve. Our subconscious minds are being programmed all day long, often without our awareness. Hill understood this principle decades before smartphones and social media existed, yet his insights are more relevant today than ever. The question isn't whether your subconscious is being programmed, it's whether you're consciously choosing the programming. Hill provides us with a practical method for communicating with the subconscious mind through what he calls autosuggestion. This isn't just positive thinking or wishful hoping. It's the deliberate practice of feeding your subconscious mind specific, emotionally charged instructions about what you want to achieve. Think of it as giving your internal GPS a clear destination, instead of just driving around hoping you'll end up somewhere good. The most successful people Hill studied had mastered this art of subconscious communication. They understood that their outer world was simply a reflection of their inner world. When Thomas Edison was working on the light bulb, failing over and over again, his subconscious mind was constantly searching for solutions because he had programmed it with an unwavering belief that the solution existed and that he would find it. As we wrap up this exploration of the subconscious mind, remember that you now possess one of the most powerful secrets of success. Your subconscious mind is your faithful servant, ready to work tirelessly on your behalf, but only if you give it clear, emotionally charged directions. The question is, what instructions are you going to give it today? Because whether you realize it or not, you're already programming your subconscious with every thought you think and every emotion you feel. The only question is whether you're doing it consciously and deliberately, or letting it happen by default. Picture this. You're sitting in a coffee shop, and suddenly your phone starts picking up a radio station from across the country. You didn't tune into it deliberately, but there it is, crystal clear. Napoleon Hill would tell you that your brain works in exactly the same way, and understanding this principle might just be the key to unlocking the success you've been searching for. In one of the most fascinating chapters of Think and Grow Rich, Hill introduces us to what he calls the brain as a broadcasting and receiving station for thought. Now, before you roll your eyes thinking this sounds too mystical, consider this. Hill was writing about concepts that modern neuroscience is only now beginning to validate. He was talking about the power of thought transmission decades before we understood mirror neurons, quantum entanglement, or the collective unconscious. Think about the last time you walked into a room and immediately sensed tension, even though no one had said a word, or when you were thinking about calling an old friend and they suddenly called you. Hill would say these aren't coincidences at all. They're examples of your brain operating as both a transmitter and receiver of thought vibrations. Here's where it gets really interesting. Hill argues that every human brain is capable of picking up thought vibrations that are being released by other brains. Just like your smartphone can connect to Wi-Fi networks, your mind can tune into what he calls the ether, where thoughts travel. The difference between successful people and everyone else isn't just what they think, but how they've learned to broadcast their thoughts with such intensity and clarity that they attract the resources, people, and opportunities they need. Now, think about this for a moment. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to effortlessly attract success? They walk into networking events and somehow end up talking to exactly the right person. They mention a business idea casually, and suddenly everyone wants to invest. Hill would say these individuals have learned, consciously or unconsciously, to operate their mental broadcasting station with precision. The key lies in what Hill calls creative imagination, combined with intense emotion. When you think about your goals with burning desire, when you visualize your success so vividly that it feels real, you're not just daydreaming. You're broadcasting a signal so strong that it reaches the minds of others who can help you achieve those goals. It's like upgrading from a weak AM radio signal to a powerful FM transmitter. Let me share a modern example that perfectly illustrates this principle. Think about entrepreneurs like Elon Musk or Oprah Winfrey. They don't just have ideas. They broadcast their vision with such passionate intensity that they attract brilliant minds, investors, and opportunities that seem almost magical. When Musk talks about colonizing Mars, he's not just sharing information. He's transmitting a thought vibration so powerful that rocket scientists, investors, and engineers feel compelled to join his mission. But here's the crucial part that Hill emphasizes. Your brain's receiving capacity is just as important as its broadcasting ability. Successful people have learned to quiet the mental chatter, the doubt, and the fear that interfere with clear reception. They've developed what we might call mental discipline, creating space to receive inspiration, ideas, and insights from what Hill calls infinite intelligence. Consider this. How many times have you had a brilliant idea in the shower, during a walk, or just as you're falling asleep? Hill would say these moments happen when your conscious mind finally stops broadcasting its worry and doubt, allowing your brain to receive the solutions and insights that are always available in the ether. The practical application of this principle is profound. When you're facing a challenge in your business or personal life, instead of forcing solutions through pure mental effort, Hill suggests you clearly define the problem, charge it with emotional intensity, and then relax your mind. Create space for the answer to come through your mental receiving station. This isn't about sitting around waiting for magic to happen. It's about understanding that your thoughts have real power to influence your circumstances. When you consistently broadcast thoughts of success, abundance, and solution-focused thinking, you begin to attract people and situations that align with those vibrations. As we move from this exploration of the brain's mysterious powers into our next discussion, remember this: your mind is far more powerful than you've been taught to believe. Every thought you think is both received by your subconscious mind and transmitted into the world around you. The question isn't whether this principle works, but whether you're going to use it deliberately to create the life you want, or let it operate randomly, attracting whatever matches your predominant mental state. The choice, as always, is entirely yours. Picture this: you're sitting with the most successful person you know, and they lean in close and say, "You want to know the real secret? It's not just hard work or even brilliant strategy. There's something else, something most people never tap into." That something, my friend, is what Napoleon Hill calls the sixth sense, and it might just be the most mysterious yet powerful chapter in all of Think and Grow Rich. Now, before you roll your eyes and think we're diving into some mystical nonsense, let me ask you this. Have you ever had a gut feeling about a business decision that turned out to be absolutely right? Or maybe you've walked into a room and instantly knew whether a deal was going to work out, even before anyone said a word. That's your sixth sense talking, and Hill argues it's the crown jewel of all the principles we've been exploring together. Think about it this way. We've journeyed through desire, faith, autosuggestion, specialized knowledge, imagination, organized planning, decision, persistence, the power of the mastermind, the mystery of sex transmutation, the subconscious mind, and the brain. These aren't just random concepts thrown together like ingredients in a failed recipe. They're building blocks, each one preparing your mind for something extraordinary. Hill describes the sixth sense as the apex of mental development, the point where all these principles crystallize into something approaching genius. Here's where it gets fascinating. Hill tells us that the sixth sense is the faculty which marks the difference between a genius and an ordinary individual. It's that flash of inspiration that seems to come from nowhere, the sudden solution that appears when you're not even consciously working on a problem. You know those moments when entrepreneurs describe their breakthrough ideas coming to them in the shower, or during a walk, or right before falling asleep. That's the sixth sense in action. But here's what makes this so relevant to our modern world. We live in an age of information overload, don't we? Every day, we're bombarded with data, analytics, market research, and expert opinions. Yet some of the most successful people today, from tech innovators to investment gurus, will tell you that their biggest wins came from trusting their instincts even when the data suggested otherwise. Steve Jobs was famous for this kind of intuitive decision-making. He didn't rely on focus groups to tell him what people wanted. He seemed to know it instinctively. Hill shares a deeply personal story about how he developed his own sixth sense through what he calls his invisible counselors. Now, stay with me here because this might sound unusual, but the principle is profound. Hill would hold imaginary conversations with great figures from history, people like Edison, Carnegie, and Lincoln. He'd visualize sitting around a conference table with these giants, discussing his challenges and listening to their wisdom. Over time, these imaginary advisors began to take on lives of their own in his mind, offering insights and perspectives that seemed to come from beyond his conscious knowledge. You might think, that's just elaborate daydreaming, but consider this. Modern neuroscience tells us that when we deeply study someone's thinking patterns and decision-making processes, our brains actually create neural pathways that mirror theirs. When Hill imagined conversations with these successful individuals, he was essentially programming his subconscious mind with their wisdom and perspective. It's like having the ultimate mastermind group, available 24 hours a day. Now, think about this in practical terms. Who are the people you most admire in your field? What if you could internalize their thinking patterns so deeply that you could almost predict how they'd approach your current challenges? This isn't about hero worship. It's about expanding your mental toolkit by incorporating the wisdom of those who have walked the path before you. The sixth sense also connects to what we now call emotional intelligence and pattern recognition. When you've immersed yourself deeply in your field, when you've studied the principles of success until they become second nature, your subconscious mind begins to process information in ways that your conscious mind can't keep up with. You start picking up on subtle cues, seeing connections that others miss, and sensing opportunities before they become obvious to everyone else. Hill warns us, though, that the sixth sense doesn't operate on demand like a vending machine. It reveals itself gradually, often when we least expect it, and usually only after we've paid our dues in developing the other principles. It's like the difference between a novice chess player who sees only the immediate moves and a grandmaster who intuitively grasps the entire flow of the game several moves ahead. As we wrap up this exploration of Hill's 13 principles, remember that the sixth sense isn't some supernatural power reserved for a chosen few. It's the natural result of a mind that's been properly prepared, trained, and focused on clear objectives. It's what happens when desire meets preparation, when faith combines with knowledge, and when persistence opens the door to wisdom that seems to come from beyond ourselves. Picture this. You're sitting across from a wise friend who's about to share one of the most profound secrets about what truly holds us back from achieving our dreams. Napoleon Hill, after studying over 500 successful people for more than 20 years, discovered something fascinating. It wasn't lack of education, poor connections, or even bad timing that kept most people from success. It was something far more insidious, what he called the 6 ghosts of fear. Now think about this for a moment. Why did Hill call them ghosts? Because like ghosts, these fears are largely invisible, yet they haunt us constantly. They whisper in our ears, plant seeds of doubt, and convince us to play it safe when we should be taking bold action. These aren't the obvious fears like being afraid of spiders or heights. These are the subtle, sophisticated fears that dress themselves up as logic and common sense. The first ghost Hill identified is the fear of poverty. This isn't just about being broke, it's that gnawing anxiety about not having enough ever. You've probably felt this ghost breathing down your neck. Maybe you stayed in a job you hated because it felt secure, even though your soul was dying a little each day. This fear convinces us that a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. But what if those 2 birds in the bush could feed us for a lifetime? Hill observed that this fear paralyzes more dreams than any economic recession ever could. It makes us hoard rather than invest, save rather than spend on ourselves, and choose security over opportunity. The second ghost is the fear of criticism. Oh, this one's particularly sneaky in our social media age, isn't it? Hill wrote about this decades before Instagram and Twitter, yet he understood that the fear of what others might say or think keeps more people trapped in mediocrity than any other single factor. Think about how many brilliant ideas have died in boardroom meetings because someone was afraid their colleagues might think it was silly. How many entrepreneurs never started their businesses because they worried about what their neighbors would say if they failed? This ghost whispers, "What will people think?" And suddenly, we're making decisions based on the opinions of people whose opinions shouldn't matter to us at all. The third ghost Hill identified is the fear of ill health. Now, this might seem like a reasonable concern. After all, health is important. But Hill wasn't talking about taking care of yourself. He was referring to the hypochondriac tendency that makes us see symptoms everywhere and imagine worst-case scenarios. This fear can become so consuming that we spend more energy worrying about getting sick than we do actually living. It's the person who won't travel because they might catch something, won't try new foods because they might have an allergic reaction, or won't pursue their dreams because the stress might give them a heart attack. The fourth specter is the fear of loss of love. This ghost convinces us to dim our light so others won't feel threatened. It makes us compromise our values, abandon our dreams, or shrink ourselves to fit into relationships that aren't worthy of us. Hill noticed that many people would rather be unhappy with someone than risk being happy alone. This fear makes us jealous, possessive, and controlling, ironically creating the very conditions that drive love away. The fifth ghost is the fear of old age. This isn't about the natural aging process. It's about the terror that our best days are behind us. Hill observed that this fear often strikes people in their 40s and 50s, convincing them it's too late to start over, too late to chase new dreams, too late to reinvent themselves. But consider this. Colonel Sanders was 62 when he started KFC. Laura Ingalls Wilder didn't publish her first Little House book until she was 64. And Anna Mary Robertson Moses didn't start painting seriously until she was 78, becoming famous as Grandma Moses. The sixth and final ghost is the fear of death. This ultimate fear, Hill argued, casts a shadow over all the others. It's not just about dying, it's about the meaninglessness that this fear can inject into our daily lives. When we're constantly aware of our mortality, we might either become paralyzed by the futility of it all, or conversely, we might become so focused on leaving a legacy that we forget to actually live. Here's what Hill discovered that's absolutely revolutionary. These fears are learned, not innate. We absorb them from our families, our culture, our experiences. And here's the beautiful part. What can be learned can be unlearned. The key is to recognize these ghosts when they appear, name them for what they are, and refuse to let them make decisions for us. As we prepare to explore how Hill suggests we outwit these fears, remember this. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and taking action anyway. Every successful person Hill studied had felt these same ghosts, but they learned to walk through the graveyard of their fears toward the bright light of their dreams. In Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill distills the essence of what it takes to turn your dreams into reality, emphasizing that the journey begins in the mind. By weaving together the wisdom of various successful individuals, Hill guides us through the power of desire, faith, and persistence, and how they contribute to ultimate success. Here are some key takeaways. 1. Harness the power of desire asterisk. Hill states that success starts with a burning desire for something definite. To apply this, begin incredibly small by defining your desires clearly and vividly. Write them down and revisit them daily, allowing them to guide your actions and decisions. 2. Develop unwavering faith. Faith is the visualization and belief in the attainment of desire. Cultivate faith by affirming your goals regularly. Make it personal by visualizing your success and feeling the emotions attached to achieving it. Be patient with yourself as faith builds over time. 3. Persistence is key asterisk. Hill emphasizes the need for relentless perseverance in the face of obstacles. Start by setting small milestones and celebrate achieving them. When challenges appear, remind yourself of your desire and faith to fuel your persistence. 4. Mastermind alliances. Surround yourself with a group of like-minded individuals who share similar goals. Practically, start incredibly small by seeking one person who can offer a new perspective. Be open and collaborative and watch your network and influence grow. 5. The power of decision. Successful people reach decisions promptly and change them slowly. Practice decisive action by making small, everyday choices quickly and confidently. Over time, this will build your ability to make significant decisions with clarity. Together, these principles remind us that wealth, in all its forms, is the direct result of a well-cultivated mind. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with at least one idea from this book that stuck with you, one concept you're going to carry forward. It could be something that challenged your thinking, something you want to try, or even something you disagreed with. Your insight might be exactly what another listener needs to hear today. And if this summary gave you something valuable, a new perspective, a spark of motivation, or even just a peaceful hour with your coffee, share it with someone who might need it too. Subscribe to One Book, One Coffee, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new summary. Every week, we sit down together with one great book, one warm cup of coffee, and the simple belief that wisdom, shared well, can change lives. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing, and remember, every small step counts. See you at the next book.